Hello, I am here to read Cameo 4, Day 7, an example of the shock effect. And this is on page 1708 of A Course in Miracles, CE edition. And I certainly hope you can hear me and that there's not too much background noise. If we could please close our eyes and start with a prayer. Dear God, if left to my own devices, my perceptions will be skewed. I surrender to you everything I think and feel. Please enable me to set aside everything that I think I know about this book, about you, about myself, and about other people. Please allow me to have an open mind for a new experience. Thank you, God, for my many, many, many blessings. Amen. Cameo 4, an example of the shock effect. Miracle Principle 20 came out of a colorful and ultimately touching exchange between Jesus and Helen. First, he gives her a miracle principle that sounds like an impenetrable riddle. Jesus, miracles rest on flat feet. They have no arches. Whoops, I forgot about that. Bill will be better on this than you. Helen, he'd better be. I don't get it at all, and I'm very suspicious of it too. Bill, did communication break down, or does this mean something? Helen's attitude is impatient and even dismissive. It may be that, as someone who prides herself on her intelligence, she doesn't like not being able to solve the riddle. Jesus. Clue. It has something to do with "Here I am, Lord." Bill knows. The idea is that I do not want to emphasize your special language too much. Some of them, the principles, have to be in Bill's language. Jesus just ignores Helen's dismissive attitude, going right ahead regardless. He has given a riddle, now he gives a clue. And up at the top where Helen is speaking, there's a 1. All quotations without page numbers in this cameo are from Helen's notes. Throughout these cameo essays, we have corrected spelling errors in the notes for ease in reading. And I am trying to get this so it's not moving around and so that you can read it well. So let's try that, and that, and that. Here I am, Lord, is a prayer Jesus gave Bill the day before the dictation of the course began. And then that's 2, see Cameo 1. The prayer was designed to help Bill be directly present to God rather than standing apart from Him. In a similar manner, as we'll see, this principle is about miracles standing directly on eternity rather than above it, on the arch of time. Jesus has now said 3 times that this principle is geared to Bill, as we see in Cameo 2. Jesus, but when you do see Bill, be sure you tell him how much he has helped you through by giving you the right message. He is always careful to include Bill and make sure he doesn't feel left out. Helen, my own associations here are very bad. A Rorschach response of footprints to the top red on 2. Helen is referring to card 2 in the Rorschach ink blot test, on which the top 2 shapes, which are red, can be interpreted as footprints, the heels being at the very top. Jesus. No, it's all right. It's the arch of time. There isn't any. so it means. Helen then wrote 3 versions of this principle. She first wrote, miracles rest on eternity. Not. Presumably, she had intended to finish that with the arch of time. Then she crossed everything out but miracles and continued with, do not rest on the arch of time but on eternity. Then she crossed out most of that, leaving only miracles rest on eternity. The meaning is now clear. Miracles stand directly on the flat surface of eternity. They don't stand above it on the arch of time. Thus, rather than being separate from eternity at the mercy of the laws of time, miracles are based directly on the law and order of eternity. This makes sense since their whole purpose is to bring in the laws of eternity to overturn the laws of time. Helen, I must say, this is the hard way, and I'm sure this could have been done more directly. I don't see why I should get a message in a way that makes me miss the point and then have to go into a mental coma to get it. And a nice pause for breath as I reacclimate. Helen really gives it to him here. She basically tells him that he's not doing his job right, informing him that he should have just said it plainly rather than clothing it in an exasperating riddle. The remark about going into a mental coma to get it is particularly withering, but as we'll see, it plays right into Jesus' hands. Jesus, answer. You've been doing that all along. You have not even bothered to look at the others, which are very clearly stated. I just thought I'd give you this one in a way you couldn't overlook it. It's an example of the shock effect, sometimes useful in teaching students who won't listen. It compels attention. And then we have crossed out pupils whose attention wanders too much. He changed that to students who won't listen. Now he finally responds to Helen's criticism, and at last we see the method behind his madness. He is still trying to get Helen to pay attention to the principles. He says that rather than making her go into a mental coma to get it, he is trying to snap her out of the mental coma she's been in all along. He is not being merely opaque. He is employing a carefully chosen device for compelling the attention of a student who won't listen. This seems to stop Helen in her tracks, presumably because she is quite aware she hasn't been listening and can therefore grasp the appropriateness of the teaching device Jesus has selected. And the device seems to be working. He, in fact, has her attention, and thus this miracle principle, unlike the other ones, promises to be one she won't soon forget. Helen then briefly remarks, so I got quite upset and snapped very unfairly at Jonathan, her husband Louis. Then it went on. But from this point on, the whole tone of the exchange changes. Jesus, and remember to thank Bill for me for his all-out support. Consistent is crossed out. I need it because you won't listen to anything. But don't worry, the 3 of us will make it. We're nowhere near the final. By the way, this is an example of the point on cooperation. Miracles are an industrial necessity. Industry depends on cooperation, and cooperation depends on miracles. And don't underestimate your cooperation either. You don't listen, and you would save yourself a lot of pain if you did. But you did get Chip over his misperceptions of Wally with very credible integrity, and through is crossed out. Jesus now switches to gratitude and reassurance. He thanks Bill for his support, which is much needed, given Helen's resistance. And he assures them both that in spite of Helen's resistance, the three of us will make it. He then cites Bill's all-out support as an example of Miracle Principle 19. Miracles are an industrial necessity. Industry depends on cooperation, and cooperation depends on miracles. The implication is that Bill's support of this project, the writing of the Course, is an act of cooperation with Jesus. When his praise turns to Helen, and don't underestimate your cooperation either, Jesus then backs this up with evidence of Helen's cooperation with him. You did get Chip over his misperceptions of Wally with very credible integrity. This brief line bears some attention, especially since because we can reasonably assume that Helen's cooperation, like Bill's, is an example of Miracle Principle 19. The implication is that Helen performed a miracle. The context, as we see in Cameo 3, is that Helen can't stand Wally. Not only that, it's likely that she wants Bill to share her judgmental view of him. Yet, she thinks that Wally instead has Bill's unconscious backing, and that's number 3, which states, see Cameo 3, Absence from Felicity 122. Into this stalemate comes another friend of Bill's, Chip, with his own uncharitable view of Wally. Surely this is the time for Helen to form an alliance so that together she and Chip can bring Bill over to their side. At the very least, it is time to privately relish Chip's negative perceptions of Wally and give these insidious seeds whatever small encouragement they need to survive and grow. But instead, Helen does the opposite. She helps Chip get over his misperceptions of Wally. This may have been more than Helen trying to do the right thing. It may have been a gesture of selfish love for Bill, since this might be the incident Jesus referred to earlier when he said you did make a maximal effort for Chip, and the only reason you did it was because you loved Bill, and that is Cameo 3. Either way, though, Helen has made, patience please, it's not as easy as just turning the page. But here we are, yay. Either way, Helen has made a definite choice to stick to her principles rather than to give in to her baser instincts. This is why Jesus says she acted with very credible integrity. Jesus' praise, being based on a clear-cut example, is now just as irrefutable as was his criticism that Helen is in a self-imposed mental coma. The effect on Helen is immediate. All her defenses crumble. So I said suddenly, a little timid and very surprised, "You mean you think I'm nice?" and burst into tears. Of course, we have perfectly defenseless crossed out. And he said he must think so, really, because he keeps on giving me everything, and he's not angry because I keep on rejecting him. But he is sorry because I suffer so much for no reason. He was really very nice about it. I told him I really do love him, but I have trouble about it. Though I did mean it for a little while anyway before I got embarrassed. And he said he understood very well and would keep on trying. Bill, please don't let me down. This is very unexpected. I don't talk this way to men. All of Helen's armor has fallen away. I don't know about you, but I'm a little choked up over this. The biting criticism has gone, and she is completely, and this is my third time reading this in the past 2 days, and she is completely emotionally defenseless. This allows Jesus to tell her honestly how he feels about matters that lie at the heart of their relationship. He clearly thinks she's nice because he keeps giving her everything. He's not angry with her for rejecting him, just sorry that she causes herself so much needless suffering. Isn't this all of us, really? Then it is Helen's turn. She tells him she loves him in spite of her embarrassment. It is a very tender exchange, all the more so because it follows what appears to be a real breakdown of communication. Then Helen drops her armor with Bill. In her plea, please don't let me down, she is uncharacteristically exposing her real feelings. Earlier in her notes, she says, men are supposed to give to me, but this is not reversible. When it comes to her relationships with men, she wants to be the one in control. But for the moment, she has dropped both her sword and shield with these two key men in her life, Jesus and Bill, and for once is completely open and undefended. Beautiful, and I think I made it through successfully, and this might be a good video. All right, I'm going to read the day 7, if I can keep it still. I love to read outside because it's beautiful. So, day 7, Cameo 4, an example of the shock effect. In this cameo, Jesus is still trying to get Helen to really look at the miracle principle he is giving her. So rather than just urging her to read and reread them, he raises the stakes and gives her a better way. And gives her a miracle principle in the form of a riddle. She gets angry and tells him he could have done this a better way. I don't see why, she says. I should get the message in a way that makes me miss the point and then have to go into a mental coma to get it. Then he comes back with this perfect retort. You've been doing that all along. You have not even bothered to look at the others, which are very clearly stated. I just thought I'd give you this one in a way you couldn't overlook it. This is an example of the shock effect, sometimes useful in teaching students who won't listen. It compels attention. Here we see Jesus acting as a hands-on mentor, guiding Helen and Bill through the study of the material he is dictating to them. His emphasis here on reading and rereading the text is priceless because it shows us exactly how he wants students to approach the course. Back to the riddle, though. It is an interesting concept to think of miracles as standing firmly on eternity versus caught on the arch of time. This is ideally how we would view all of our interactions, both with ourselves and with others, because without this understanding, we are far too easily distracted by whether we deserve an expression of love or whether it's been earned by someone else. That would be Bentley saying hello. Thus, deserving and earning can only be based on time because they're rooted in past behavior and fluctuate according to perception. What we are left to assume then is that our own perceptions, by virtue of the fact that they are not eternal, cannot be the foundation for miracles. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining with me. We got through this successfully. I think I can post this video and delete the other two. So this is day 7, Cameo 4, if you're following us in Course Companions. If not, then I hope you enjoyed reading Cameo 4 with us, an example of the shock effect in the purple A Course in Miracles CE edition. I love you. Thank you.